Are you guys good?
We're good.
Are you guys good?
Oh, can you turn it? Yeah. Thanks.
Actually, can you scoot to one of those chairs just so I can look at the ground?
Okay. Let's do it. Okay. All right. Thank you all for coming tonight. We're going to go ahead and get started. Couple minutes. It's actually not for us. We're well behaved, so we don't need a microphone. This is for the live stream audience. Hopefully there's a bunch of people watching at home, enjoying some French fries and hamburgers while we're all here. But we know you guys are well behaved, so we're not so sure about the other ones.
See if this one broadcasts.
Oh, does it? Okay. No, they're all for the live stream, I'm pretty sure. I'm Jason Stevenson. I'm one of the co-chairs of the East Liberty Park Community Organization. We're co-hosting tonight's discussion. We appreciate all of you guys coming here. Hopefully you heard about it through social media or emails from the city or emails from ELPCO, but you're here, and that's what's important, participating in your community at probably the most local and hands-on ability to change your community and make it better. So thank you for coming tonight. Joined by my colleague.
I'm Daryl High, Jason's other co-chair. We're thrilled to have you here, and our role as a community council is to advocate for our neighborhoods. And so as we, this meeting this evening,
All my moms and grandmothers were teachers, so I got that voice. Discussion. Snap a picture of the QR code. You'll get our next email newsletter about things like this as well as other events that are coming up.
we normally meet on the fourth Thursday of every month in the Visitor Center at Tracy Aviary. So I think the 23rd is our next scheduled meeting. You're all invited to come to that. So you'll be aware, we live stream this meeting. You can, after the fact, go back and watch the events of tonight. Believe it or not, that little round tube sitting right here is the camera. And we will endeavor during our question and answer period to pass one of these microphones. Format is here. We will introduce Gen C.
People are kind of infinitely scalable. We can have people walking around and they don't need all that much space. But if we're always relying on our cars to get to and from every place, it tends to complicate things because driving in a car requires so much space. And so back to we want a successful 9th and 9th, we want a successful neighborhood. Recap of this project, which Liz said extends from Lincoln about 950 East all the way up to 1300 East. It's only about 3.5 blocks. Last year at a slower speed, but you get to where you're going in less time with this design, which also means that we have to maintain and a lot more green space along the sides of the road and even in the center of the road with the roundabout. To make Overall, we want a more equitable travel experience, offering choices for people of all ages. So starting in about 2016, when we were doing the 9 about this section, but about the entire 9-line trail. There was actually a table at the 2016 9th and 9th Street Festival where we talked about this and had similarly long as well as at other opportunities. And again, starting last year, we had open house after open house and feedback from past process. The interesting thing about the pop-up intersections that drive was that the ideas for intersection design to test actually and we actually went back to the community in a survey and had them vote on the options that they wanted us to test. By the community. We did surveys throughout the last year. You've probably grown tired of getting emails saying, take this survey, come to this meeting. Well, I guess and it's kind of draft fine in January that we bid out. And once we did that, we had a sense of what the final design was and what impact is why most of you are here. So that's what I'll talk about now. Beginning in January, we did specific outreach to the property owners who were parking loss that was incurred because of elements in this project. In retrospect, it may have been better to do a community-wide outreach. The reason we did that property owner by property owner approach was because the parking loss for this project was really concentrated in front of a few businesses, in front of a few properties, that I'll get into in just a second. As we met with those property owners, we heard their ideas and concerns. We tried to incorporate as many as were feasible. We did a lot of investigation about the costs and easements and property lines and all of that, and tried to modify our design as much as we could to incorporate those ideas. And that's where we came to the would be repurposed another purpose. Used to be parking, would be given us permission to modify a couple more things, and what we've gotten down to is 20 parking spaces. And let me explain where those are and why those are. Why those are. I've mentioned these before. A couple of them are because of the 9-line trail. A couple of them are because of our ADA accessible bus stops. Previously, you could park in a bus stop on 900 South, and because these will be accessible in the future, we will have to sign those or that you can't spaces anymore. And that won't exist are because of that roundabout design and the area that it takes. And thank you. I forgot to do this earlier, but this entire project will only have physical impacts, or we'll only be building and redesigning things that are within the public right-of-way. So we will not be encroaching on private property or purchasing land or doing any easements or anything like that. So now that I am to that point, let me walk you through the map with my trusty laser pointer. Okay. Let's start from the west. So let's start on the far left side of this page, if that's okay. We have Windsor Street because that's sort of the end of the commercial 9th and 9th area. The project doesn't touch anything going past 9th East until we get to Lincoln Street, and even a little bit east of Lincoln Street. So if you were worried about parking directly in front of these properties at Windsor or 9th East or Lincoln Street, that's not part of this project. Yeah, Lincoln is about 950. I think it's 940 east on the sign, but it's about 950. So the colors, explain the colors real quick. Red is a parking space that, due to the redesign of the road, would go away. Blue is a parking space that either is being added in, new and previously non-existing, or a parking space that we had removed previously as part of those 29 spaces and that we were able to add in when we got down. And I should note that when we're talking about 20 spaces or 29 spaces or green or blue or red, we are only 900 South as part of this project, or just around the corner down to the property line of that property that's on that corner. Does that make sense? So if you get 3 doors down from anything that would remains the same. So in order to transition, let's start here, and transition from this design 6 to our new design, one parking space here had to be removed and may actually be reintroduced in the future if we can make a slight modification to that when this part of the, sorry, I didn't mean to go off the page, when this part of 900 South is reconstructed in the future. Here on 10th East, this is just east of the Contender building, one of the spaces here is currently allowed and won't be afterward, but there's a current no parking sign that we'll be able to move to gain a space just on the other side of the street. So lose one, gain one, there's no net loss there. One of the ideas that was proposed in our outreach starting in January of this year, and that we were able to incorporate in a slight modification of our design, is converting and gypsy to angled parking. So by doing so, it turns 6 parallel spaces into 10 angled spaces. So really, if you're looking at west of the fire station, 1's lost here and 4 are gained here. So we're already at a positive of 3 parking spaces gained. This is the Hip and Humble and Coup de Coeur building. Parking of the parking, one more space so that people can predictable manner and use as much of that frontage as possible, and that's really nice. One space will be lost here on McClellan Street, both on the north side and on which is along McClellan Street. Here in building where ELPCO used to be, to just be replaced by extending angled parking, and so there's only one parking space lost, and then along and we've already a net gain of 1. So if you're concerned about parking west of the roundabout, fear. The roundabout is really the location where because the bus stops that were there didn't restrict you from parking in this intersection. Again, we have some blues where we were able to gain them back in, but this is primarily where we have the parking lot. East, the Norman property here and the Lieberman-Siebers building here, there's no more change to parking. There's actually no more to the width of the roadway because it's quite a steep hill, and the 9 line gives you two options: to either take the bike lane going up the hill or to take an improved route up Gilmer. Has grown and become more successful or more popular, and then finally, we'd like to come up with some strategies with all of you in the future when we do that study to figure out how to manage that parking better so that it does work for everybody.
It's really hard to see back here. Can you review what the parking is going to look like going east of the roundabout?
East of the roundabout, there's no change to parking.
No change, but I see some blue.
That's not true. East of the roundabout, you've lost the majority of parking space.
Okay, so I'm considering not the roundabout, just the center of the intersection, but the roundabout is this area that is the changes that are required are because of the design of the roundabout.
Going
There
up
were
the
two.
street, going up the hill, night
Uh-huh.
south, point out what's parking, because it's really hard to see it from back here.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so the question was, what is parking going to look like going up the hill, going up 900 South? The parking will remain on both sides of the street where you can currently park. You'll still be parking in a parallel manner against the curb, and none of that will change. The quantity will not change. The configuration will not change either. There was one question that somebody asked me before the meeting that I thought I would point out before I turn it back over to Liz, as to why there are some locations where we're not adding even more parking in where we could. One of those locations is down here in front of Contender, where there's currently 3 angled parking spaces. That's due to this becoming the new bus stop for Route 9. Currently, the bus stop is here, and we moved it to here not only because UTA loves their buses to stop on the far side of an intersection rather than the near side, but also because it allowed us to get the maximum amount of angled parking in that area in front of Posh Paws and Jeans. And then the other location is here, where we have these 5 parallel parking spaces. It looks like a prime location for angled parking. There is a canal that runs underneath the street, about right here. It's called the Salt Lake and Jordan Canal. And that's actually the canal that you walk or ride your bike on top of when you get farther south and you're on the McClellan Trail. That's that same easement. And because of the easement that's there, it restricts where we can put parking because the canal is very close to the surface. In that location, it didn't give us, for the cost that it would be to put all of that in, it gave us maybe one additional parking space. And that's why, in terms of the cost and the feasibility,
Tom will finish.
sure. And it'll never go, it does in each direction. So once you get east 13, as it is, it'll remain one direction. It just ties right back in. The east side, by Java Joe, ends up with the design that's done. Travel lane. It's so that you can get out of the lane and turn left into a driveway or onto a cross street. I believe it's 11. If you guys can't see, again, this is the to extend the trail to build the 9-line trail over the next few years and have it complete. Where it's currently or simply spots. Here's another bus stop. Again, you can see it in the aerial image. There's a car parked there, but it's parked illegally. There's a, I love aerials because I'm like, wait a minute. A sign about right here that says no parking. This space here, this last space before you get to the roundabout, will be restricted for the bus stop. Sorry, the last two spaces. And then this space here will be restricted so that the bus can not only pull to the stop, but obviously a bus is about 40 feet long and needs that space as well. And then going up the hill, the only other bus stops, which again don't affect parking, are going to be here, where the bus stop currently exists, and then it'll be over here. It's not drawn in. We'll be building it as part of a separate contract, but there's also no parking allowed there either. And so really we're just talking about this one bus stop here and this one bus stop here at the roundabout that would be affected by this design, or the parking would be affected by this design.
More informational questions before we move to, is that okay?
Last informational question before we move into discussion.
Sorry, it's got two parts. One, at those bus stops, will there actually be shelters? Because right now there are none, and it's a terrible thing for transit riders. There will be shelters.
That's a really good question. Our transit program manager is working on improvements to all of the stops for the whole length of 9th South, for the whole Route 9. The Route 9 at 3rd West will actually turn south to go over the freeway at 13th South, and then it'll come back up. And each stop will be improved with, according to the amount of people getting on and off the bus at that stop, with the adequate amount of improvements, whether it's a bench or a shelter or a garbage can or all three. That remains to be seen. But
So that's a separate project from this one. For now, there won't be any.
we'll be building the pads, and UTA and the city will be coming back and putting improvements on.
This is partly kind of with active transportation, and I took parking to be a very broad concept. Where will the bicycle parking be improved, and will there be any things like more secure or covered or multiple stall parking, like for example McClellan, where you can't put car parking would be a perfect spot. Will there be any improvements to bicycle parking as part of this?
That's a really good question. No, there will not. We are doing improvements like bicycle parking, UTA shelters, benches, things like that, as a future phase of the project, but not as part of this reconstruction, no.
Actually, how about actually when we move into discussion, the first question will be are there any more informational questions for Tom? So you're not done yet. I'm sorry to tell you.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but do you have anything else on your
No,
presentation?
that concludes my formal presentation. Thank you, everybody. I'll turn.
So thank you, everyone. Thank you for listening to Tom's presentation. We really appreciate your passion in coming out here. Honestly, we didn't expect as many people, so thank you for coming into this space tonight. So we're going to start the facilitation discussion. Just a couple things. Because we also have an online audience, we do have and we'll bring you the microphone, okay? Also, we do have a lot of people here tonight. So we're not taking a vote at the end of the evening. So if you hear that someone has shared the same thought that you had, if it's okay to let other people speak, we just want to make sure we have every voice heard. Please feel free if you want to share, but just please respect that we do want to hear from as many people as possible this evening. So with that, we'll start the questions. I do want to say that we have, besides Tom Millar, we also have several other city staff here who can answer your questions. We have John Larson, the city's transportation director. We have Will Wright with economic development. We have Roberta with economic development. We have Matt Castle, city engineer, to answer any construction questions. And we have Jen McGrath. Sorry, Jen. We have Jen McGrath, who is our acting director of community neighborhoods. We also have Jen Seelig, community empowerment director, and Tim Cosgrove, mayor liaison. And we also have Eric from planning to answer any parking and zoning questions, and several other city staff who might be able to help you. So with that, we'll open it up for questions. Does anyone have specific questions on Tom's presentation? George.
I count
Sorry.
13 spaces lost around the roundabout. Where did I go wrong? The red dots there say spaces are lost. You told us before spaces are lost. Now you're saying there are no spaces lost east of the roundabout?
So
How many
Tom.
spaces around the roundabout are lost?
Actually, yeah.
Thank you. That's a great question. Somebody told me after the last meeting that I preface every answer with, "That's a great question." It is a great question. So the overall project parking loss is 20, right? And so there may be, we can count them if you want to.
No, I just want to know how many east of the roundabout.
So Tom, just east of the circle.
East of this or east of this?
Define the roundabout.
The roundabout is any design change that the roundabout required.
Yeah, but can you answer the question though?
Yeah, I'm just trying to define where we're talking about. So are we talking about this whole area?
Anything between 11th East. That makes it
Yes. How many spaces are lost in that circle you just drew?
Let's count. 1. Let's count together. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21. Okay. 21.
So 1 second.
So hold on. 21. Okay. Here's another 22, 24. We're at 24. 25. Okay. And then we have 1, 2, 3, 4 gained. So that takes us down to 21. And then there was somewhere else that we were gaining 1.
Tom, east of the roundabout, you're losing about 10 plus spaces. And that was a question that was asked before.
Mhm.
There are residents here that are east of that roundabout, and they're affected. That's why they wanted to know about it. My real question is, why are you using or wasting the parking islands or spots or strips that are almost useless, and at the same time, why not allow more angled parking? Because this area needs more parking because people are parking in residential neighborhoods. We want the area to be successful business-wise. We want to encourage walkability, but it doesn't happen if there isn't enough parking to get people out of their cars and walking through the whole area. And otherwise, they're going to park in the residential areas, which destroys the character of the residential neighborhood. That's what I think people are concerned about.
So maybe it would be helpful if John could provide some information about the future parking management study.
Thank you for your question, George.
I'm good. Okay, so tonight we really want to, as Liz has said, we still want to focus on the area impacted directly by this project, but we recognize that the parking issues in this area neither started nor will end with this project. So we are committed to having a follow-up study, have a consultant probably on board by the end of the summer, hopefully sooner, that will look at broader parking issues, including the spillover into the neighborhoods, how best to manage the parking, how to set ourselves up for success together as we continue reconstruction south. We do have a project in the pipeline that will continue the 9-line trail and do a lot of reconstruction all the way to really 3rd West. So before we jump into that, we'll be able to have a broader discussion. We do have.
Succinct has been access traffic in the neighborhood. So if somebody could answer the first question, I think we'd be off to a better start here.
I have a question. I don't need a mic. My building's on 11th East, where the roundabout is cutting through. Did you count losing 3 parking spaces in front of that store on the street as part of your 20 whatever?
So we counted parking spaces on both the 900 south side and the 1100 east side of your property. And so that would be the 4 parking spaces that would be lost there due to the design or size of the roundabout.
Tom, please speak up.
Thanks, Jen.
And
Oh.
the other part of my question is, are we keeping the continuity from 9th and 9th to 11th? So are we getting street lights and trees and things so that there's a continuity between 9th and 9th all the way up to 11th?
That's a really good question. The improvements that were done in 2006, which is what Mariellos is referring to, were done through what's called an SAA, or a special assessment area, and the purpose of those is to make some of those improvements like enhanced street lighting, trees, angled parking, benches. That's why you see some of the same types of benches and street lighting between 10th East and about Windsor Street, so between about here and down here, is because that was part of the project in 2006, and all of those improvements were paid for by the adjacent property owners. And
Wait, one second.
And so,
Yes.
so
After
to answer
he's
your
done.
question, no, as part of this project, we're not extending those improvements further east because we don't have the special assessment area in order to put those things in.
Yes.
Tom, if we're replacing the roadbed with concrete, that's theoretically going to last 50 years. Does it make more sense to do the parking study before the concrete?
Great question.
Oh, actually, so, no, you don't. John. Oh, Matt Castle, city engineer, ladies and gentlemen. Do you want to answer that, or John?
I can have John answer it.
John.
Where is he? Oh, there he is. Just as it's related to the parking study.
I think it's safe to say that we've done everything we can, and we'll continue, to keep, getting as creative as we can. But I think we've squeezed as much on-street parking as we possibly can out of this project without compromising the elements that of the project that the community have asked us to include over the last 16 months. So, because part of quantity of it. Everything could be management is at you can have
Wait,
free.
If we could have a single conversation, appreciate it. Thank you.
So if you any stage or any restrictions on parking, that's kind of starting with like zero management, right? And then you could do things like you add 2-hour metered parking, a little more strong management. Similar, you can work as a business district to maybe find off-site parking possibilities where employees can park to be able to free up the most convenient parking for customers. Other options, we're working with a business group on State Street. We're going to be having a very similar conversation about the trade-off between on-street parking versus amenities for walking and biking and just kind of urban design and general attractiveness of the street. We're going to be reconstructing South to 9th South, and we're having conversations with the businesses. One of the restaurants is interested in having a wider sidewalk in order to be able to have sidewalk dining. And the thing I understand I'm throwing out. Someone asked what are ideas. I'm not saying that's what we would do here, but that's the sort of thing. And so in order to make up for that, they're planning on doing off-site parking and actually having pedicabs bring people in. I'm not saying that's what you're doing here, but I'm saying those are the sorts of conversations we're open to, and that's why we want to have the conversation broadly and work through all of the ideas and look at all the resources available in the broader area.
Will from Economic Development to talk about plan for business.
Districts, native parking solutions. This is moving forward when you maybe agreements with other businesses have
Yes.
how
as homeowners paying our bike trail. Is it true?
But all intersections of
My
the public right of way and an improvement that the public right of way, and that is something. Let's see, where is it? I think it's between 9th and Lincoln, or between elderly customers that come and pay.
Project because of the feedback and the efforts from the community here, and we'll continue to do so. Well,
I'm going to let her.
So actually, we have a lot of people who've been holding their hand. We'll have the gentleman, and then you, sir, and then right up front.
So I know that, so I just want to speak on the positivity of the project, because as a cyclist and as a parent, thank you for clapping for that. Anyway, I do feel bad that you guys are losing your parking, and it is terrible. But at the same time, that intersection was so dangerous. That intersection, people do not know how to get through it. It needed changing. And I looked at all the plans, and I drive through that. It's a terrible, terrible intersection that was causing damage to cars. There are people getting in accidents. My kids don't want to walk across it. I live on 9th. So for me, I think that's a great change. I don't know what better change, honestly, to incorporate Gilmer. We looked at, I looked at the plans as they came out, and honestly, like for me, the safety, the bikeability, the ability to to get to where I need to go in a safe manner, for me, that's great. And that affects the whole city because a lot of people are going through there. And I know that's hard for people that are losing the parking, but for the rest of us that are driving through that every day, it's not going, I know, wait till it's in front of my house. It's hard. I'm sorry, but it's safer. And that's better for everybody.
So
There
we
shouldn't
do
be a
have
stop, 'cause
different opinions, and we could just respect each other's voices.
What do you mean there's no stop there?
Okay.
Yeah, there's a yield. There shouldn't be a stop and a roundabout.
So we'll give it for this gentleman in the green.
Yeah, I would, living also on 9th South, I can entirely disagree with the roundabout being a good idea. Because when they did the assessment of the study, it was the only option that increased the speed of people passing through. That is the only option that increased. A four-way stop would lower the speed than currently. The five-way stop, I agree with you. How it is today is horrible. And adding a roundabout doesn't fix that. You still have the blind spot coming off 1100 East. I drive that every morning coming back in the morning from the gym, and every time I see someone coming out of Gilmer almost getting in an accident. So to tell me that that's a better option and to lose parking is not true. The best option was to go through and route Gilmer into put that into a four-way stop and route Gilmer up onto 9th as a right turn only. And on top of that, when you get up by East High School, if anyone's ever driven on that road in the morning, making that one way each way is a horrendous idea. But in terms of I live across that high school, and that high school is horrible in the morning with 2 lanes, with all the traffic that goes from not only 8 South and 9 South that's trying to get up to the university. You're making it so much worse by putting that into 1 lane each way.
Okay. And with that, Jen.
Thank you. I would like to ask everyone to direct comments to the front of the room to the facilitator. It's a trick we learned in the legislature and in other community meetings. Everyone cares a lot about their neighborhood, and this is good, but it also helps diffuse any potential conflict. Let's continue the dialogue. That is Liz. Please raise your hand. Thank you.
So with that, sir in the green shirt.
Thank you. I'm fairly new to the area, relatively speaking, about 3.5 years, but I live on 9th East, about a sand wedge away from the intersection. That's 80 yards for me. I think communication and parking is kind of my two concerns. I came in from a trip and I found out that the apartment building was going up. It was kind of news to me, and it kind of impacted my neighborhood, and it's increased the demand for parking. So it's not just staying static. And I didn't know the apartment was going up there, and I live like across the street from it. And then this one, that seems like you've talked to people, the businesses there about parking, but parking really affects everybody because it's going to hit in front of my house and everyone else's house. So it puts pressure there. I don't know how people find out about what's happening because I found out about this project just like a month ago maybe. And it's kind of too late to really speak up at that point. So I'd like to find out how you get in the loop on these types of things. I think, handing out flyers, or I don't think knocking on doors works, if people work. But anyway, I'd like to find out what's going on in the neighborhood before it's a deal. On the parking, 20 spaces I think is kind of huge. I like the fact that the businesses are successful. I want them to be successful. That impacts the value of my house. Yeah. I like walking to them. And so 20 spaces deal for everybody, and it seems you want it to be kind of done, but just to say you're going to do a study later on about parking, everybody would like to have something globally looked at parking and come up with a solution that we know something's going to happen besides we'll look at later. Yeah. Anyway, that's all I got.
So I can answer on how you get more information. There are several ways. One, there's an specifically for this project. It's 900 South at ELPCO.com. It goes to the mailboxes of Tom and Don Carrillo in the back, who is with our engineering division. So you can, if you ever have questions, they also have a phone number on the city's project site, which is, I mentioned it earlier, slc.gov/mystreet 900. Oh, yeah. Oh, the next project, I understand. Okay, thank you. And with you up here, we've had a hand up for a while.
I forgot that this doesn't project. I just want to also give my support for the project. I think that having a separated facility throughout the whole city is a valuable asset for our community, something that I know that the city's been working on for, I don't know, since I moved here. When did I move here? 11 or 12 years ago. And I think that change is hard, but a lot of studies have shown that once change happens and people adapt to that change, they don't feel the impacts of it. And I just think that people should recognize that parking on streets, on the public right-of-way, isn't a God-given right to do. That a lot of these businesses have asked for parking reductions when they've gone in. And so if they were so concerned about parking at the time, then they could have had more parking on their facilities when they were built. From this image, it doesn't actually look like that many residential parking spaces are being affected. So I'm also a little bit confused about that. But mostly I just want to give my support about a citywide separated facility. I do think that that intersection is extremely dangerous. As someone who used to drive through it a lot when I used to work in Sugar House, and I live at 9th and 9th, I thought it was dangerous and I would avoid it because people didn't know how to do the 5-lane intersection. Roundabouts are better for mobility. The way you have it designed are better for pedestrians, bicyclists. And then I just want to point back to our air quality. And I think that while we all drive now, we can't continue to drive and park and use our vehicles to the same extent that we use them now. And that something that is like this, where the bicycle facility separated, is going to help people make that transition from driving alone to using transit or to biking as a commuting option or even walking. And so I just want to point back to, this isn't just about this one block, it's about the entire community and the entire state, and to just keep that in mind.
And question, and Kyle bringing you the microphone, right?
Just really quick, I think we have to remember that not everybody has or uses cars. And so can you talk a little bit about how we represent the accessibility community, and so how this area is going to give a little bit more access to people with disabilities?
Sure. You want me to take that one? That was one of our obviously our main objectives in this project. The way that our streets are currently designed are not necessarily meeting current standards or specifications for accessible design, and so often we run into this this kind of a wall where change is hard. Someone said by those accessibility guidelines. Some of the elements of this project that will improve accessibility for people of all ages and all abilities are new crosswalks that are not only higher visibility, but at several locations much shorter than they are currently. Especially at the 1100 East intersection, there's a crosswalk there that's over 110 feet long, and that crosswalk, I mean, that's in the road the entire time, and even for an able-bodied adult, that still takes roughly 40 seconds to cross the street. So all of the crosswalks, like I said, will not only be higher visibility, but some will be shorter. At the roundabout specifically, we heard the concerns that I think I heard from some people that were commenting earlier, that roundabouts, or this roundabout, changes a stop sign to a yield sign, and that such a design would be less safe. We completely disagree with that because of the way that we've designed it based on your feedback. We heard from a lot of people who said, I would like the roundabout if you made it the safest that it could possibly be for walking with my going through it, only be able to go by design about 20 miles per hour, and then are raised a little bit so that as you enter the roundabout, of too high box. So design through a sign or a good program design, we hope to encourage all the people who are using this intersection and the entire street to be driving at appropriate speed and to increase accessibility for all users.
I would first like to start out and say that this plan that's been presented today is a much different plan that was presented 2 weeks ago. So I'd like to commend the city and the mayor's staff on working on this and creating additional parking. I know that it was a big job, and I appreciate that. I would also like to clarify or ask a question about the extended park strips and the trail. Are those being watered by the city and maintained by the city? Because that's what you said, the city will take over maintaining and handling the park strips?
Is that the
snow removal also?
Is that the end of the question? Do you have more questions?
I do have more. I just want to hear the answer on that
Oh,
one.
okay. So the maintenance of the trail itself, the concrete trail that'll be 10 or 12 feet wide, will be done by the city. That's snow clearing, that's sweeping, that's painting, fixing any cracks, anything like that. And then because we are making that park strip wider in order to facilitate the trail, the net amount of space in the park strip for most of those properties has not increased because the additional width is being taken up by the trail. So even though it looks like more green space, it's just two different areas of green space to maintain. As part of this project, we will, any sprinklers that we affect, we'll put those back in, so there will be new and functional sprinklers. And again, the amount of area that has to be watered and maintained for the majority of these properties will not increase, and therefore the burden to the property owners shouldn't increase either.
So essentially, they'll be mowing 2 park strip sections on either side of the trail?
That's correct.
Okay. One more question, and that is, we've done a study also, and we're missing a few of the lost parking spaces. The 11th East there, can you explain that on next to the cafe? There, you don't show the spaces that have been lost there.
Next to the next to Cafe Espresso?
Yes.
Right here?
Yes, just south of that there.
Yeah, so there are currently, pardon me, John. There are currently no spaces here on the east side until you get south of this driveway. And so that east side won't be affected by the roundabout. And actually, we bring the, it's kind of hard to see probably from where most of you are standing, but we bring the new curb back to where it is right now.
So there's a loss of 2 spaces
south of the driveway, but there are currently no parking spaces north of that driveway right now anyway. So the distance between the curb and the island will allow somebody to park and somebody to drive through without impeding traffic. So the people who park here south of this driveway in that first residential property and farther south won't be impacted by this design. The bus stop that's there right now will be consolidated with this bus stop here. The reason why the 213 bus stop, which is for the 213 going southbound, is there south of the coffee shop is because the 213 right now has to make a left turn. In order to make a left turn, they have to get into the left lane, and so they couldn't before stop at this bus stop and then kind of jump across that intersection. So now both of those will pick up and drop off at this, and then the southbound 213 will go through the roundabout and will continue south without having to stop and block traffic. That's one of the reasons why we put the bus stops on the near side of the intersection, is so that the buses were not stopping after the roundabout and then clogging all of the traffic through the roundabout.
Last comment, I think a majority of the people that are here are in favor of creating a safer environment with the roundabout and creating accessibility, ADA accessibility, really important. I think that the majority of the people here would like to have had this parking study done before the project rather than after the project, and we would just like to know and hear from your group if the group is still open to making changes to possibly add parking in other locations within the plan.
Where did John go? Dang it, John. That's kind of a pretty key question that we've heard from a lot of people. To what extent can we modify this design kind of after this meeting. Again, we've looked at all of the places that we can possibly add parking in as part of this project, from Lincoln to 1300 East and really not going up and down the streets. As we study parking very soon, we'll be able to identify not only if there is excessive demand and not enough supply, but also if there is excessive supply and not enough demand, and being able to ensure that the parking is used, again, by the people who need to use it in the locations that they need to use it to.
So, had your hand up for a while. And then, there.
Okay, well, I'm loud enough. Okay. Well, my name is Sarah. I am, as you can see, I'm in a wheelchair, and very excited actually about all this project that's going on, because you guys are going to make accessibility for us, people like us that can't jump over those curbs and all of those parking spots. So I'm very excited. This is going to open up a lot of doors for people that able or disabled, or people that are blind or hard of hearing, or just like me. So I hope we could get this going, and I hope you guys could be happy as well. I'm excited, and I hope all of us could just get together and, you know, I just want to make everything happy for everybody. That's all.
So before we jump to the next question, we actually have a question that's floating in this area that's been sent in via text that
So if you go from, I think it's about 3rd, 4th west. Okay, basically I-15 west, we already have over a mile of it, and then kind of east along Sunnyside, we have sections of it complete, and that are also under construction. It's a multi-use trail that serves both walking, biking, scooting, as long as you are traveling at a reasonable speed and respectful to each other. It's wide enough, so it'd be similar to other multi-use trails that we have in the city.
Thank you.
Can you describe it?
Sorry, okay, so yeah, the question, yes, so it's paved with asphalt. So, like I said, it's paved in concrete. Thanks a lot, Tom. Some sections are concrete, some sections are asphalt. And you know, the point being, so it's a two-way path. So you know, on similar to you know, the Parley's Trail or the S-Line Trail, it's something that we found we've had very positive feedback with past trails and with this trail actually throughout the project on you know, the ability to be able to move along the street away from traffic. You know, I've got little kids myself, and they don't walk in a straight line, and it's being able to have a buffer, and you can just feel your pressure kind of drop as you're on a trail like this. So that's kind of the experience that we're going after. And so we actually applied for and got a county grant to be able to extend. We have most of the money through that grant, and then we think we're going to be able to scrape and find fill in the rest of the gap to be able to extend the trail from here west to pick up at I-15, so that you'll be able to have a low-stress walking and biking path that stretches end to end, east to west throughout the city.
Thank you. First of all, let me just thank all of the city folks who are here today. You know, I know public engagement is very, very important. In this room, there are a multitude of opinions as to whether this is a good project or not, and all those sorts of things. At first, I need to thank everybody too I live on Gilmer Drive, and I've been there for 36 years, and I know that when you guys were working on the roundabout, I was probably the biggest pain in your rear end, and I appreciate all of you for putting up with me then. You know, I'm probably late to the evolution movement of walkable communities, and I give that to the fact that I'm old and had significant orthopedic issues. But you know, this is a terrific project. You know, and as you look at it, the first thing I want to say is it's important to get started and done as quickly as possible. There's money that's not Salt Lake City money, I understand, that comes from other funds from the county that have a timeline on it, that if we don't get the project done, that's going to cost city residents up to as much as $3 million more. Pressure to pay that. So let me just, culminate my opinion. To slow the traffic going westbound off the hill is important. I've seen a lot of traffic go down and even skip the stop sign. They just go through it. And I've gone through that five-way intersection for 36 years. There aren't as many accidents on that five-way as people think, because there have been about 7 in 10 years. I asked the city to do that. I'm not going to disagree with you. I respect your opinion.
If we could just
there aren't that many. So the bottom line is slowing the traffic, making the area more walkable. I think is absolutely critical. The two things I would ask as we move forward, and I want to move forward quickly. 9th South is a war zone with all the chuck holes, is to do two things. First of all, if there's any way to increase parking on the north side of the street between 11th East and 940 East, I would recommend we do that, because I think that will help the retail community, and I would support that. Okay. Secondly, I want to say, and I've heard ideas and I've seen pictures of diagonal parking east of 11th East going up the hill. To me, that makes zero sense. It's uphill. You're not going to get people are not going to park there and walk down 2 blocks to go to Vessel Kitchen when Phil gets it open. And being there 36 years, I'm not exactly sure how many times I've seen a car parked on 9th South East on that south side of the street, 11th East on the south side of the street. So adding diagonal parking there makes zero sense, and I would be absolutely opposed to that. But I guess, as I'm saying, as the city tries to balance everybody's opinion, because if you look at 125 people here, how many people there are a number of opinions. I hated the roundabout. I can live with it, because that's what the majority of my neighborhood wanted. I know the majority of my neighbors don't want diagonal parking east of 11th East. I know we need to get more parking for the retailers if we can do that. But, let's not stop the project. Let's not slow the project. If Phil and his group want to look at other parking studies as we move forward, we can do that. If we can take a look at some diagonal parking east of the firehouse, I know the canal's there, and I didn't know that until tonight. But if we can add 3 or 4 spaces there, let's take a look at it. But you know what? Let's do it in a way that we can get this thing moving and get it done in a quick fashion. But thank you all for all the time that you do.
Thank you. Gentleman with the sunglasses.
Thank you to specifically Jason and Daryl. Because of the two of you, I have met Tom at least on 4 separate occasions on this project.
I'm sorry.
I have never felt like I haven't had an opportunity to have my opinion heard on this project to this date. Over the last 2 years, I've had multiple online surveys that I filled out. I've come to every meeting that's been posted -1 because I couldn't make it. I feel like we got to give our input, and as a cyclist and a runner who goes across that intersection and who watched a guy blast through it at 40 miles an hour today from the blind side of a car as he comes down that double lane intersection, I'm tired of it. I want to be able to move through my neighborhood. I am super excited to get this done. I'm excited for my 7-year-old to be able to get down there in another year or 2 and cross it safely, where right now I can't get him there. It'll be another 8 years before I think it's safe to have him cross that intersection. So let's get this over with.
Yes, we'll take. I know we have a lot of hands who want to come. Yes.
I have a couple of things. First of all, you keep saying the community, but when we did the roundabout, the community had no idea how big that roundabout was going to be and what it was going to take up. And then a thing that I don't think anybody's thinking of is when you go to a roundabout, I've been in back east everywhere, People are just looking to get in the roundabout. You have this sweet little girl here that's trying to cross the road. All those cars are going to have to stop for her to go all the way across the road. So the whole roundabout is being backed up. Like you said, it's 100 and something. Nobody's thinking of that. There's no light that stops. Someone else could be crossing this way. These guys have to stop. And no one has said one word about any of that. And it can't happen. It's not going to work. I love the roundabout if it was in a different place. But if she goes to cross the street in that area and someone crosses the street over there, sorry, I keep getting in her way, all those cars in there are going to have to stop. But every car is going to go, when do I get to get in? When do I get to get in? When do I get to get in? You're going to have more problems, more problems, more problems. And then another thing that I want to talk about too is I don't understand how we ever came up with this being the greatest way to do this when you have a fire station right there. And that's why I asked, how big is that, median going down the thing? The fire station, if you just have one lane, a fire truck can't go around those cars. It's going to be backed up and it's going to be stopped. It's just kind of driving me crazy. And then just so you know, too, is I've really looked at it and really thought about it because it is a personal thing, but I'm not talking from my personal thing at all right now. My personal thing is I own the house on 1111 East. Right now, that roundabout stops right in front of my house. No parking. There's going to be now, and I love bus stops, don't get me wrong, and I think they should. No parking, no anything. I can't get out of my driveway because everybody's going to be coming out. I can't turn left. And again, that's personal, but I'm looking at all this other stuff. When people are all trying to get in the roundabout, you think it's bad now. I've been there 30 plus years, and I've watched the whole thing, and I've seen how it works. But you talk about a roundabout, someone crossing, think about it, you guys. Think about it. When she's crossing that street, and even an able-bodied person like you said you couldn't. If you're crossing from 11th going south to, sorry, I'm shaky because I don't like talking in front of people, but to 9th, if that's taking, him a long time, and you all have to wait, no one's getting in that roundabout. No one's moving. It's not happening. And then someone's crossing another way. And then all of a sudden there's a fire and the fire truck's trying to come. It can't get around you. It can't get up. It can't get over. I don't get it.
Do you want me to answer that? Yeah. Okay. So the way that, to answer a lot of your points kind of with one succinct answer is the roundabout was designed so that the intersection for all modes of transportation, all types of people was safer than the current condition. I said the current crossing is very long and takes an able-bodied person very long to cross. That will not be the case in the future. Those crossings will be up to 8% shorter. They're considerably safer, and then entering and exiting the roundabout, because those are raised crossings, they will be paying attention first to the crossing, and then after they cross that crosswalk, then they'll have an opportunity to check the intersection for traffic, and it's designed so that they are going at that speed. When we did the pop-up roundabout, we had to do it within the confines of the road that we had, and so we made the roundabout as big as we possibly could. Making the roundabout a little bit bigger, a bit bigger than how we tested it actually increases not only the capacity of the roundabout, but the safety and the low speeds of the roundabout. If you have a smaller circle, it can increase the speeds through that intersection. And then related to the fire station, the fire department, not only kind of head brass fire marshal, but Station 5 as well, has been an amazing partner in this project, not only in the tests of the intersections, but also in approving the redesign of the roadway. And so any concerns about not only traffic backing up and blocking that fire access, but also any potential qualms from the fire department have all been discussed, and that's why it's taken us this long to get here, is that we wanted to make sure that we didn't only hear your voices, but all of the other people that would be involved as well.
So, but
yes. Huh? Yep.
So what we'll do is, I know we have a lot of hands. We'll go to the back, and then we'll come up here.
Yeah, you
I apologize. So if it's all right, we'll go. Yes, sir.
Hello, I'm back here. So, quick question just to add to it, because I know one of the things that has come up in all the other projects that I've had, I have like 3 businesses on 9th and 9th and live in 15th and 15th, but are there any zoning codes or any ordinances that are out of date that would allow us to increase the parking so we could actually, apply some of this energy and excitement towards other solutions? Because that's what I've heard in our other projects, is that part of it is the code is out of date. It's no longer applies to the current state of how we use these roads and those needs, and that's what I would wonder.
That's a good question. Let me defer you to Eric, who is in our planning division and can answer questions about parking.
I thought I might make it through the entire meeting without having to say anything. But let's see, yeah, so I'm Eric, I'm with the planning division. As part of a separate project, we are currently rewriting our parking ordinance, and that relates to off-street parking. And we understand that our current ordinance is outdated for a lot of different reasons. Specifically, in this area, one of the things we're doing is we'll take a new context approach. So we realize that it's not a one-size-fits-all. One use in one area has a very different parking demand than downtown as it does on Redwood, as it does in a neighborhood center like this. So that's something that will be changed with the new off-street parking. And then also we have improved a number of things. We're proposing this now. The draft ordinance for this will be ready in about a week. It'll be on our website, and anyone that wants to receive that and be part of it, we're going to be sending that out. But we'll have new opportunities for increasing private parking where needed for retail and restaurants, on-site parking that was maybe a little bit limited right now. We'll also have plenty of opportunities to decrease it. And those will be through what we feel are a lot more meaningful improvements, where the current code, for example, has a provision for pedestrian-friendly amenities, but we haven't necessarily seen them translate, when they were written 15 years ago to what we thought they would. So we've got new, more up-to-date, following, better practices, more real-world examples where people will be able to take advantage of shared parking or valet parking or different things like that, and improve the off-street parking experience in the area. So that answers that.
Yes. Oh, no.
Don't leave.
Yes, who?
My name's Jim. My wife and I are the owners of the veterinary hospital location at Lincoln and 9th. I've been a little bit close to the action and working with the city over a number of years on issues related to vibrancy of local business. And I'd like to ask, since I have an opportunity, whether this project is going to continue westward in a way that will further impact parking that we do not yet know about. I have a follow-up.
Oh, okay. The parking impacts of the, like John mentioned, the extension of the 9-line trail farther west are not known at this point because we haven't obviously gone through this similar process on that project. But looking at this section of 900 South without the roundabout, the 9-line trail itself doesn't really affect all that much parking loss. And because there's not a dramatic planned like the roundabout, the scale at which parking is being lost on this project is very unlikely on future phases that are farther to the west of Lincoln.
Thank you for that. I'm glad to hear that. I would like to say that while you may love the businesses in the area, or you may not, and you may dislike the parking situation intensely, it is unlikely that the vitality of these businesses without that parking will continue, and that people should be wide-eyed open about that. that they rely on local traffic, foot traffic, other local traffic, but they also rely very much so and undisputably on people coming from other areas. And so the parking is a big deal, and I would hope that we won't find ourselves in a situation down the road where we're jeopardizing the businesses because of.
And those are awesome comments. Clear, and I think every small business owner is a hero, and I appreciate what you do. So, like Tom said, we don't anticipate the level of parking loss that we have because we're not planning another roundabout. All right, I forget the microphone doesn't help all of you. All right, so we don't anticipate another roundabout or transformative intersection through this area, but what we have heard loud and clear is that we need to engage not just on general design issues, but on potential parking impacts sooner. And we didn't fully understand the parking impacts until we got into the design. But as far as the exact number of stalls, but what we're committed to is, as we move forward, even before we know with precision what the impact is going to be, we're going to open that dialogue a lot sooner.
Can I just follow real quickly on that? So the Vest Pocket business, now under a different name, and Buy Local First have long asked the city to, as a part of its normal processes, include impact assessment of zoning changes and changes on the ground like this, infrastructure changes, and to plan to mitigate those adverse consequences that come from them. And that has not happened so much in the past. And if what you're saying is that it's going to happen more now in the future, that would be super fabulous.
I actually was coming up to answer a different question, but I think it actually is more relevant to what you just said. A few years ago, how many years ago did we put in the 3rd South bike lane? 2014, thank you. That project, if you're familiar with the protected bike lanes that went in on 3rd South in downtown, we actually lost, and correct my numbers if I'm wrong, about 30% of the parking along that project area. And the concerns that you are sharing with us tonight are the same concerns that those businesses had back in 2012 and 2013 and 2014. And the city actually did pay really close attention and did do some follow-up work and study to assess the impacts on those businesses. What we have found is that consistently those business tax revenues are actually not only keeping pace with that of the rest of the city, they're actually exceeding the pace of the growth within the rest of the city. And so those businesses are not just thriving, but in a lot of cases are actually doing better. Now, I'm not saying that that's 100% attributed to that project, but what I am saying is the city is committed to not only looking at these impacts, but also to take that into consideration when we do projects like this. We know we've seen studies around the country that show similar data that tell us that when you do projects like this, when you slow traffic, when you put in bike amenities and pet amenities, generally businesses thrive in that kind of a setting. And so we'll continue to monitor that in this neighborhood and in others, and we'll continue to incorporate that data as we do planning and design for other projects in the future.
So right here.
Hi, I own 931 East, 900 South. I have since 1997. I want to give you guys an A for your responsiveness, because about 10, 12 days ago when this all came to head, all of you really did respond to a lot of our concerns, but I kind of need to give you a D- on your communication. I am not alone in this room when I say no one told us there would be 29 parking stalls removed. We heard 7. We heard 9, and about 2 weeks ago, we heard 38, and then we heard 20, and we're hearing 20, and 7 and 9 were concerning because I've watched this, and I had an assessment on my property about 1998, 99, where those cut-ins were done between 9th East and Lincoln. And at the time, I believed in it, believe in it now, because it's incredibly helpful. And I think you have to be very careful when you say these sections aren't affected. The whole neighborhood is affected. So if you're just counting one or two in, that's not sufficient. And I do need clarification on something, because there's a lot of rumor going around that City Council approved and budgeted for this based on 7 or 9 parking stalls lost. Their side, that they didn't know that it was 29. So I would like confirmation tonight on what they were told and what was actually approved with their budget.
I think we can let Erin speak to that if she wants to and is willing, but I just want to say that from the city staff perspective, first, I hear what you're saying and understand, and I think that, sorry, that I assume I'm loud. I think we've learned from this experience in trying to make an effort to give really special one-on-one attention to people. I think we lost sight of how important it was for people to see a larger picture, and that's a lesson that we've learned. In terms of what the time that they adopted or approved the funding for this, none of us knew parking loss would be the time. We had very preliminary design.
So how can you approve a project like this if you don't know what the parking lot is?
It is.
I would argue the city council wouldn't approve the project today with the amount of parking.
That.
How do you approve it
Wait,
if you don't
one
know the
second.
parking lot?
Sorry, lots of
yeah,
questions.
One second.
The way that the project process works is you never get far enough along in the design process at that point to know every single impact. You know that there, and I think we made a mistake is in not saying, hey, we don't know what the impact is going to be, but we know there will be. We learned, and I don't think we'll make that mistake again. But at the time, we sincerely did not know what the number was, and said, as soon as we found out what those numbers were, as soon as that design was complete, we immediately went out to.
Wait, one second.
Can I just answer for the council question? I appreciate that, because the council typically, it's very typical, like Jennifer said, that we get partway through a design process. We don't do 100% of any design typically before it's brought to council, and part of that's because they'll do, I'm making numbers, 40%, 50% design to get a little bit of money to get a concept. Then they go to the community, do what we did last summer, get some feedback, and then bring that feedback with the proposal to the council and say, do you want to fund the full design of this project and allow this thing to come to fruition? That's typically the way any project. But the conversation, I would agree that what we talked about last summer was a roundabout. There was no parking articulated to the council about, no parking loss articulated to the council, nor was there a conversation about expanding the opportunity to create better pedestrian access farther west of the roundabout. This was a roundabout that we funded. And the scope of the project changed since we funded the process. And they have the funding to do more from the county transportation dollars that came through to do some of the 9-line improvements. So they didn't have to come back to the council to say, we want to do these other things too. So I just want to reiterate that that's what the council knew. We knew what you knew. Not at all. Thank you.
Yes. Wait. Kyle has a.
Hi, if I could just make a comment. My name is George Norman, and I'm in one of the subject properties there on the corner. Just a couple of things. The group here has really worked with the community really well. I've been to all the meetings. Of course, my property is impacted quite a bit, and it's just been amazing how much information we've had out. It's really been really terrific, I think, on the city's part. On this parking thing, I'm a little shocked. I know there's a lot of red at the intersection. I've been there about 25 years, and I knew when I came into the city, I came out of the holiday community, that there was going to be a shortage of parking, that there wasn't going to be a lot of parking. And so if I had a trailer or SUV or more than one car, I've got 6 kids, that parking was always going to be an issue when you're in the city. Gilmer Drive, which has a lot of red spots on it, is a very narrow street. There's been a lot of conversations way before this that they were going to just limit parking to one side because it was designed for Model A's. And there's no way if people are parking on both sides that cars or trucks can even get up the street. And people don't park there now. I see all these red dots at this intersection. I don't ever see, as Mr. Spatafor spoke, ever see anybody ever parking where those red dots are, at least on the south side of 9th South. In terms of the landscape and everything, Mr. Millard made a comment about that there were that they were all using public ground. My ground is being compromised quite a bit. Now, I've been there about 25 years. I've put improvements in and have changed the landscaping. And it gets into a legal opinion sometimes about how much of that property should be deeded to me. So we decided after all the meetings and everybody came out and they voted on this, we were going to support it. There's been shifts on the roundabout where it's taken up a lot of our property, and then they were going to make it up on the park strip. On the park strip, we started to dryscape that. We held off, hoping to tie into the new bike path and all the different things. This lady here that made a comment is that, you know, if we're going to have more asphalt, you're going to have more cars. If I was ever going to leave Salt Lake, I have to admit it's during the winter because of the dirty air. So what do we want? Do we want more cars, or do we want a clean city? Do we want Salt Lake City to stand out, to be really it's what it should be, something very beautiful, or do we just want a whole bunch of more cars? You know, and I know, at least a little bit of business experience I've got, more asphalt and more parking doesn't bring in more customers. This area here, people bike, they like walking. If they want to come to the shops, you know, they're going to park in the area, and I realize that there might be a shortage of parking, but I would like to say, too, that I've had an experience. My mom was with the Chamber of Commerce in Walnut Creek in California. I spent some time years ago in San Francisco, also in Manhattan. And hey, you know what? If you're going to live there, it's a neat place. There's no parking. If you're going to live in the city of Salt Lake, in a historic district or in this community, hey, let's keep the community. Let's let the businesses thrive, but everybody's got to kind of adjust. And all these red dots, this is way overstated, in my opinion. So
thank you for that. Unfortunately, we do have a hard stop at 8, so we have to stop the discussion now. But before we do, I just wanted to first thank U City, Liberty Park, for hosting us this evening. And also ELPCO. And with that, I would just like to turn it over to Jen to talk a little bit about next steps, and then also John to talk about next steps.
Okay. Actually, mine was more about gratitude. Thank you all for coming here tonight on your night that you should be spending with your families and relaxing. We depend on your input and your feedback. We don't always do everything perfect, but we try, and we will continue to try. We will continue to evaluate your comments here tonight, and we will make the best product possible. Again, thank you. And thank you also for caring about your neighborhood and for directing your passions in a way that are productive, helpful, and allowing us to go forward. John, can you please talk about what we're going to be doing with this information this evening?
Yeah. Thank you. This is wonderful dialogue. And like I said before, this is a better project because of all of you and all of your efforts. And so we really appreciate it. This project, the stuff that you see actually drawn over the aerial here it's moving forward. And I'm just going to apologize in advance. It's going to be a crazy summer with all the construction. We're going to do everything we can to help mitigate that. We have Adon in the back who reach out to him as much as you need to. If you're not getting the responsiveness that you need from the contractor, we want to do everything we can to help accommodate businesses. Like if you have a big sidewalk sale and you need a little space for a week, you know, we want to work with that. And then we're going to work. So while this project's going concurrently, we're going to get the broader parking study up and going. And we're going to continue over the next year and a half on the design for the section of the reconstruction of the street and the addition of the 9 line to connect from here to where it picks up again on the west side of the city. And we're going to take a lot of our lessons learned here to hopefully it'll be a little bit less painful of a process. But we do want your feedback because you will help make it a better project. So we'll be moving ahead with those concurrently. And I think that's it.
And with that, the final word from ELPCO.
Thanks, John. Just want to thank everybody for being here. We normally don't have this attendance at our monthly ELPCO meetings, except for maybe that in-between meeting last year. It makes me realize I should start spreading a rumor that Walmart's going in where Cafe Espresso is. We'll get a lot more people. But seriously, you've probably heard a couple folks in the audience today say, hey, this is the first time I've heard about this project, or why wasn't I getting the emails? And others have said, hey, you know, I've been involved for 1.5 years or 2 years. And we know people have really busy lives. There's a lot going on. But one way to get involved is to get involved with your local community council. There's a sign-up sheet going around. We're ELPCO on Facebook. You can find us. We realize you don't want to come to every meeting. Maybe you want to come to the ones that impact you. But this is the most local and hands-on way to get involved in your community. And you can make a difference by showing up, speaking, and being engaged. So that's just a pitch for the community councils. And it can show you what you can do as a community getting together. We have a lot of folks in the audience who've expressed their opinions. Keep it up. Keep telling us what you want. 9th and 9th is a treasure. It's why we're here. It's what we show off to our friends and family when they come here. We don't want it to become Sugar House. No offense to Sugar House Community Council. We don't want it to become 4th South. We want it to be what we want it, and we can make it that way. So keep participating. And on behalf of Daryl?
Fourth Thursday of every month, normally in the Visitor Center at Tracy Aviary. We hold those meetings based on your input and your desires. The city folks that have been here so graciously this evening are frequent visitors, and they'll come and answer your questions whenever we ask them. They're responsive. So thank you for coming.
And there is no Walmart, don't worry.
Okay, yeah, I shouldn't break your mic is what you're telling me.
I know you're really. I hope that helps.
It's always hard to balance. Try all we can do is
How did the audio start coming through?